Welcome to our Cybersafe Digest Weekly Podcast, Episode 10. Each week, we will unfold the most recent cyber attacks and will provide you with valuable insights on how to shield your business from these threats, along with practical steps and tips to enhance your cybersecurity.
Hello everybody, I'm Martin Roberts, the Managing Director of Newways, here with
Toby Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer at Newways.
And welcome to the Cybersafe Digest Weekly Podcast. This is episode 10, and it's a bit of a special, actually. And we're doing this because we've been dealing with quite a number of customers who've been facing this challenge over the past 12 months, and we've been doing a lot of work. It's about a subject which actually sounds relatively easy to solve, but actually is far more complicated and takes up far more time. And it's about issues that people have with their shop floor stuff and networks, and how it can provide opportunities for cyber attacks which traverse the shop floor all the way through to the business IT. So our background as a business is many customers, we work in manufacturing, and the one thing that we see quite a lot of, Toby, is machines out there on the shop floor which are big investments in the past, and they can be 10, 20 years old, and they're carrying computers which are operated by old software and which can't be upgraded.
Yeah, and it's as you say, it's a computer-controlled piece of equipment, whether it be an entire factory line or it be a CNC machine or something like that. But they're running with a PC on the side of them, running an operating system that is commensurate to the era with which the big machine was purchased.
So we're seeing things like Windows 7.
Oh, Windows XP, Windows 2000.
way out of date, not being updated, can't be updated. And vulnerable to attack. And again, they're also vulnerable for another major reason: the manufacturers or the suppliers or the supporters' method of access.
Yeah, there's a whole blend of potential issues. One of the things that we see is this drive to production efficiency and data capture from the shop floor. And so these older machines are now being attached to networks.
Yeah.
So historically, when they were bought, there was no thought that they might be networked. They were standalone, and people went up to them and perhaps put a USB key in to upload a new program or a new configuration, or they perhaps enter it on a keyboard directly attached. But now businesses want to get some data out of these devices, and they see they've got a network card on them, so they plug them into the network and they can interrogate the data that the machine is producing.
Yeah, and of course the other benefit of that is if you're working in an organisation which maybe has deployed ERP or some other CAD CAM and all that, you can download product information directly to that machine and cut out the programming bit, the manual programming.
Yeah, so it's all part of that efficiency, the operational efficiency, streamlining the operations.
Now, often these machines are supported by the manufacturer, if they're still about, sometimes by individuals who provide management services to them, who can log in remotely and fix things. Yes,
and invariably, some of these organisations have different attitudes towards security than others. So the larger players tend to take it the most seriously, and they will ensure that they're doing the best that they can do with the equipment that they've got. But there are a lot of small, even one-man band type organisations that are supporting a machine that is 20, 30 years old. And for whatever reason, whether it be limitations of the solution that they're trying to connect to, or just their lack of understanding, then some of their remote access methods leave a lot to be desired.
So what's the worst you've seen?
I've seen TeamViewer with no passwords.
Oh, wow.
So as long as you can find it, you can get onto it. RDP exposed, so this is the built-in remote desktop protocol, which is just exposed to the straight internet with weak credentials. They're probably the two biggest. I mean, there are other softwares out there that can be used and abused in similar ways. VNC is another one. Again, there's open source variants of it. It's available as a free download, which of course to a small organisation, free sounds good. But maybe 20 years ago, 10 years ago, when these things were put in, the threat landscape was different and it perhaps wasn't that big a concern. But nowadays, there are tools out there on the internet freely available that go off and just scan everything on the internet to see what's open. So there's a resource called Shodan, which basically just is continually scanning the internet to see who's got what open, and you can go onto that and you can say, show me all of the CCTV systems that have got vulnerabilities that I can exploit, or show me this type of PLC, or show me this type of show me the IDP connections that I can access.
Okay, PLC, by the way, for the uninitiated, is a programmable logic controller. They're things that can make machines work in as well. They operate machines. They send control codes.
It's like a very specific computer. Yeah. It's designed to do a very specific thing. Yeah. You couldn't run Outlook on it or anything like that. Yeah. It's designed specifically to move valves and turn conveyor belts, that kind of thing.
But access to those sort of things from bad actors could cause huge problems for that device, for that machinery, for that organisation.
Yeah, and the product that it's making.
Yes.
You turn the speed of something up or turn it down or add more of ingredient A into the mix and you get something very different. I mean, there was an issue a couple of years ago. This is I think it was a TeamViewer related one at a water treatment plant in Florida.
Yeah.
And the team that managed the environment thought, it's a real pain having to get up in the middle of the night to come into the office when something goes wrong. We'll just stick TeamViewer on it.
Right.
And then we can log onto it from home. Wonderful. Okay, well, that was wonderful until, of course, a bad actor managed to find it and get onto it. And they increased the concentration of lime that went into the water treatment by something like either 10 or 100-fold.
Yeah.
And, of course, it would have meant if it had happened, it would have been completely poisoned the water. Yeah, it would have made people very, very ill. And it was eventually caught in time because there were other safety measures as part of the testing before the water was released. But it was an example of how a seemingly innocent time-saving activity actually could have reaped really, really a real bad reward on the consuming populace.
Now, I guess, so we talked about the potential openness and the risk of people getting onto those machines. So if we take the scenario whereby we've got a single network in an organisation, in a manufacturing plant, and it's got both the manufacturing kit sitting on it and the office kit, the servers and the backups and all those things, the potential risks there are?
Yeah, so one can be used as a springboard to the other. Yeah. So there's a few different ways this can play out. Yeah. So we think of the office IT as being the IT, the information technology network. We think of the factory IT as the operational technology, the OT network. And they're terms that are often used to describe the two different types of environments. So what we can see sometimes is that the IT network is regularly patched and it's got great security software on it, and all the end users are trained on what to look for in terms of dodgy emails and how to use USB drives and things like that. Yeah. That side is all relatively well contained and managed. Yeah. But the factory side, the OT side, perhaps isn't, because it's connected to equipment that can't support a later operating system, and therefore it may be full of vulnerabilities. Yeah. And so an attacker could leverage one of those to take control of that and then use that to potentially springboard into the rest of the network. Yeah. Because normally what will happen is that factory environment will be trusted by the IT environment, the office environment, for the purpose of exchanging data, because we've already noted that companies are trying to connect these older bits of kit to the network to either extract data or to push data to them. And so, again, because these things are older, sometimes compromises are made around security to allow them to work in the way that they need to. And because in some cases the machine is certified with that kit, you can't change it, you can't alter it, and it's locked in a configuration. Yeah. So we saw this several years ago in the NHS when the WannaCry worm hit. Yes. Things like MRI scanners, X-ray machines were all hit because they were all running unsupported versions of Windows, because to replace that version, to replace the PC should have been £500-600. Yes. Not a particularly powerful machine. It just needs to be running a later version of the operating system. But because it's certified to run an MRI scanner, which may be £100,000, £200,000, £300,000, the manufacturers don't say, go down to PC World, buy whatever you like, plug it in, you're good. No, they want to make sure that you do it all properly, it's properly ratified.
Yes.
In a healthcare environment, that makes sense because it has to be certified to be safe to use and that it's not going to cause any problems for patients. But the knock-on effect is that you end up with all of these things that are locked in an old configuration, and the demands of modern business is trying to pull them into the network. And so we've got this conflict between what's safe to do and what does the business need to do.
Now, I think what we've recognised over the last couple of years, and we've got direct experience of this, is the insurers of manufacturing businesses or businesses that have these things are taking a real interest in this problem, because they can see that it's a big risk to them and the premiums that have to be paid and the risk to the insurers themselves, and so are now beginning to insist a separation of those networks or actions which make them secure and reduce the amount of traffic between them.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And we've seen an increase in this over the last year or two, and certainly this year I've worked with some customers and they've had addendums to their data capture from their insurers that basically total about another 100 questions.
Yes.
So out of a previous year 250, they've now got 350, 400 questions, and a big portion of those are all around the OT environment. Okay. And it's kind of like that two-way street. So spoke briefly on how the OT environment can be used as a springboard to get into the IT environment. A lot of these things are being driven by critical national infrastructure.
Yes.
And the chances of getting onto one of these OT networks at a nuclear power station or in the national grid or something like that are relatively low. So the attackers will try to use the IT network and use that to compromise.
Well, I suppose we just need to bear in mind the recent news from Sellafield about the compromises there.
Yes, the alleged compromises.
My apologies. Yes,
according to the people responsible, there is no evidence that anything happened. But
of course. Now, I guess that separation is actually far more complex, because a lot of the kit that's sitting in factories is old in terms of switches. So, the way these networks have grown. So it's probably true to say, isn't it, that, hey, the evolution of a business is we've got our office network, all works fine. Oh, there's a machine out there. How do I want to get some information to it or from it? How do I do that? Oh, I go out and buy a cheap network switch, stick it on there, run a cable. Hey, that's fine. And what people are now facing is the requirement to make it secure is to actually replace a lot of that kit.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it is kind of the only way you can deal with it in some of these cases. I mean, they're definitely a product of the era within which they were manufactured, so their capabilities are often much lower. Yeah. If you've got actual PCs, then you stand a chance of having some decent control over the networking. But we've seen it with some of these programmable logic controllers that actually they're very, very basic in terms of what they support. They won't allow you to create complicated networks. No. They don't contain the ability to allow you to effectively and efficiently segment them from the rest of the network. So there's a lot of challenges. Some of these can be addressed just by replacing stuff. And we've seen that a lot, and that was a company buy a cheap switch.
Yes,
and we'll put it in, and that it's the conduit, it's the piece of electric string that makes everything work. But it's not always possible, and it's definitely something that is easier said than done.
Yeah, and I guess it's also been compounded, of course, by the issue we've had trying to get hold of kit. There's been a shortage. It's easing up now.
It's getting better now, but certainly over the past couple of years, the supply chain issues that have hit networking equipment have made it problematic. Yes, meaning that people have either had to wait, or they've had to buy much more expensive kit, because, of course, what tends to happen is that there's a sweet spot in the middle that is all the stuff you want at a reasonably good price, and that's the stuff that all gets consumed first when there's supply chain issues. Yeah. You're then faced with things that either won't fit the bill or a lot more expensive than you were planning to pay. So,
in our experience, what we're finding, in some cases, we're having to, we go in, we do a survey, we map the network, we see the vulnerabilities, we advise the organisation to invest in new switches, and then we go through a detailed process of locking those switches down, segmenting the network. And just to explain a bit about what, when we talk about segmenting a network, what's that actually mean, Toby?
we want to try and create self-contained pockets, so things that need to talk to each other can talk to each other, and things that don't. So at the moment, we consider that we have one single network, which everything in the company plugs into.
Yeah.
In a very simplistic way to segment the network, we might say, well, let's put all the servers in their own network segment.
Right.
And we'll control what can talk into that network segment. So it's only the things that need to come in from the places that need to talk in can do so.
So that can go down as far as saying, well, I'm taking to a bit of an extreme example here, or not extreme, I'll take your view on it, is we might say that people who work in finance could only access a server with a finance application on it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which makes enormous amount of sense.
Yeah, because why do they need to see servers that they don't need to? I mean, it kind of works on the inverse. It's people that don't need to see the finance application server. Why do they need to see it? So that's actually, it kind of works in two ways.
Okay, and so therefore, take its logical conclusion here, if you need to see that machine on the factory floor and pass data to it, or likewise get data from it, only you can absolutely lock that down to make sure only the applications or people that need to do that can do it.
Yeah, exactly. And doing so it makes it much more secure than just having everything open. Yeah. Obviously not as secure as completely isolating it. So there is that trade-off. Yeah. But the advantage is if let's say that device is compromised in some way, you are limiting its accessibility to everything else in the network. So it can't as easily be used to be a foothold or bridgehead into the rest of the network and have something spread laterally.
So it's worthwhile reiterating that the insurers right now see this as a huge area of vulnerability for manufacturing businesses.
Yes.
And we've been doing a number of projects with people to tighten this all up. And I think we had some good news last week in that one of our customers managed for the first time to actually get a competitive insurance quote.
Yeah, they managed to get 2 quotes,
right? Which
was something that they'd struggled to do for the past 4 or 5 years, I think.
Okay, and I believe they saved some money.
They did, a reasonable chunk. Probably, close to 20% on last year's premium.
Wow, so that's actually significant. And two things really. One, I mean, will it outweigh the initial year's investment in new switches and all the effort and whatever? Probably not, but it certainly contributes to it.
Yeah.
But certainly reducing the vulnerability of the organisation, another area which could allow the business to be compromised, another route into compromise, is actually well worth it, because the real thing about all cyber attacks which are successful is not necessarily not only about the cost of putting it right and it's the reputational thing.
Yeah, I mean, when we had our cyber event last year,
yes,
and one of the stats that I pulled up in my talk was around the costs of the attack, and we didn't go into specific numbers, but what I was trying to explain was the proportion of the cost, and this number, the impact of fixing it, is about a third of the overall cost that you're expected to pay, because you've got these reputational damages and the cost of having picked up the slack and getting back on track, and there's a lot of additional costs. So it's the investment that gets made in addressing effectively what is a technical debt. It's a lack of investment in these areas, and it's almost quite funny in a kind of sadistic way that organisations will spend millions of pounds on a piece of plant equipment, and they'll buy the cheapest networking gear they can find to power it.
Yeah, which is not good, I guess. Yeah, and the other thing I was just thinking about, if you're a manufacturer, you're part of a supply chain. And once that supply chain recognises a weakness, it'll start to look elsewhere. So, and maybe a go-to-market for manufacturing businesses is to demonstrate and to show that you do invest in your cybersecurity across the whole piece, not just your office IT, but across the whole piece, because that makes you a trusted supplier.
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing across all different customers, all different sizes, insurance and then customer demands to demonstrate their fitness to participate in supply chain is increasing more and more. Particularly those people that deal with large organisations, the big multinationals, they are imposing almost the same standards that they impose on themselves to their supply chain, which makes it really, really difficult for small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses to participate. And there's a dance that needs to be had to navigate that.
Okay, so in conclusion, if you're a manufacturer, if you've got shop floor equipment out there which has computers on it and it's on the network, you need to take a close look at it and make sure that you are locking it down, you are managing that risk as well as you possibly can, because it is another area of vulnerability for you. If you need to know more and have a chat or just have a review, do contact us. So thank you very much, Toby. That's quite an interesting area to cover and very specialised in a way.
Yeah, and it's huge. We could talk for hours, and we're not obviously going to bore people to death with that. But as you said, Martin, if this resonates, then please reach out.
Okay, so thank you very much for your contribution this time, Toby. We'll see you next time, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of episode 10 of our Cybersafe Digest Weekly Podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and to make sure you don't miss out on our future episodes, hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple or Google Podcast. For more cybersecurity wisdom and resources, head over to our website at cybersafe.co.uk. See you next Thursday.